Hey guys, this is the Blue Collar Future Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Robinson, and I'm here with Brian Joyce. Brian, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Oh, good, good. We've been talking off camera a little bit. It happens every time, and saying we're gonna run out of good material, but you're down to go over all of it again. So here we are. So, Brian, let's get right into just what you do and go from there.
Well, I've been plumbing for, over 10 years now. And it started doing my own thing a few years back. And I couldn't imagine not doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I love to be able to provide a service and to be able to do it the way that I want to. Um, and it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah.
But
How
everything
did,
from residential,
yeah,
residential type plumbing. I don't get too much into commercial, but
yeah. Well, I mean, they're real big projects, and if you haven't done them before, it's pretty like big task to bring on, I'm assuming.
oh yeah, well, especially for me, right? It's as of right now, I'm a one man band, and
Oh yeah.
it's when I've gotten bids, and opportunities to bid on commercial jobs, but even if I were to get them, at this point, I'm like, okay, that's going to take a while. But no, I don't ever shy away from anything, but my bread and butter is service and repair, residential plumbing. I
Nice.
absolutely love it.
So you do mostly service and repair and not too much new construction or just
I do a little bit of both, right? So
both?
I have
Both? Okay, you're
a
good.
lot of contractors that I do work for on the like remodels. I don't get too much into brand new construction because a lot of that goes on the production side,
Yeah.
and that's not really my game. There's not a whole lot of money in it, just at least for me where I'm at right now. But when I go on the remodels, it's a lot easier to do and then service and repair. I mean, it's mostly, hey, my water heater busted, or I have a pinhole leak, or my drain is clogged. I mean, those are the predominant ones that I get into. That
Right.
yeah.
Well, that would be what I'm assuming is where you can make a little more money, especially on smaller type jobs, because construction is always about cost and saving cost, and especially residential new construction. I mean, yeah, it's scraping pennies and cutting corners and
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Because when I go into my jobs, right, I am always explaining to my customers, hey, look, this is what I'm using. You get to see it, it's quality, and I don't ever skimp on quality so that I can save money and it's not doing my customer any benefit, right? So I always tell my customers, look, I like you, but I don't want to see you again for this, right? Because the whole point is to do something right so that it doesn't have to be redone again. But yeah, I mean, there is always the opportunity. And it's kind of like I always say, like you can make a whole lot of money in plumbing if you do it scummy way. But it's the same with every field, right? It's that most people, I like to educate my customers on what I'm doing so that they know, right? They're comfortable, they understand what I'm putting in their house, and it's all done the honest way, right? It's the only way that that's why I started doing my own thing.
yeah.
I never want to be able to see somebody out, especially in my hometown, right? I'm born and raised here in Temecula, and I strive to do things the right way so that there's no issues.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want your name being thrown around as the guy that cuts corners and screws people over. So,
No, 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 no. That's the thing, right? Is that I make sure that it's quality. I make sure that I explain everything, and I make sure that they're happy with it. Because the last thing I want is, I've used to work for. I'm not going to name any names, but big plumbing companies that unfortunately they push you to kind of do things the way that you shouldn't. And I've been on so many job sites. They're like, "Oh man, I can't believe you're charging that." And I'm like, I'm not charging that. I'm just here to provide a service, But it's such a blessing to be able to work in my hometown, to see people that I grew up with, and just doing jobs for family members that I grew up with, and to be able to say, these are my prices because they're my prices, and they're it's not over the top. I always tell people, look, I'm not the cheapest, but I'm not the most expensive, but you're going to get quality, and you're not going to have to see me again for this. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
you mentioned something pretty important was um, your communication with your customer and explaining what it is you do and why and what you use. That line of communication is super important in that type of work. And a lot of people that don't like that type of work can't do it because of that, because they can't have those conversations with their clients and go through that process of explaining because they don't have patience or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and the biggest thing, right, is that 90% of the time when I go on a job, it's the woman that's at home, right? And not all the time, right? There's that 10%, but most of the time, if I wanted to, if I was that type of person, they don't know. Plumbing is one of those things that if you really don't know, and I could be running whatever I want, and I could say whatever I want, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I did that, and here's your bill, and they wouldn't know otherwise until there was a problem, later on down the line. But for me, my goal with my company is I do things to I guess not to impress, but to um, take care of the woman of the house, right? So when I do something and a woman can think that plumbing is impressive, then I did my job, right? Because that's something that usually predominantly men are like, oh, that's a nice valve that, that looks really good, or and they understand. But if I can explain something, and I'll tell my customers, I'll be like, look, I'm going to explain everything, and you may not understand a word of what I'm saying, and stop me if you don't want me to, continue. But I'm going to explain something, and I said I'll explain it to your husband as well when they get home, and then that way when you two talk, oh, you know what, I do remember he said that, or it's a matter of respect, right? And then on that same caveat, right, is I want to be clean. I'm gonna anything I touch, it's getting cleaned, whether they tell me or not. Because I look back at a lot of contractors that that what separates you, right? What makes you different? There's a million plumbers out there, and okay, well, I'm going to be really good at what I do. Well, there's a lot of plumbers that are good at what they do. Okay,
That's what a lot
well,
of people say they say sets them apart, and that's overplayed. I mean, you gotta have like some other part of your service that is different, you know?
yeah, right. And then so it's like, all right, so I'm good at what I do. Okay, my communication is going to be top notch. I want to make sure that they fully understand everything about what I'm doing step by step, right? Because as a consumer, you want to make sure, hey, look, I know what I'm paying for. I know what I'm getting. And then two, it's presentable, right? That's something we grew up with, making sure, hey, look presentable, and then clean, right? That's a big deal. Nobody wants to have to clean up after you. And so I make sure I'm clean. So start to finish, right? All those facets go into, okay, wow, he did everything, right? Because I can go in there and just be an a-hole and do great work. And my customer probably won't want to use me. Yeah, he did really good, but man, he was rude. Or, he left a mess and now I gotta clean all this up. And it's just those things combine into the plumbing's the plumbing, and even though that's one of the most important things, I consider that the least important in everything that I do. Just it's the same thing when you go out to eat, right? If your waiter or waitress is rude, you're like, gosh, yeah, the food was good, but I don't want to come back here anymore. It sucked.
Yeah. What what is your favorite thing about what you do?
To provide a service. That's kind of one of those things that I never knew what I wanted to do. My daughters always ask me how I became a plumber, and for me in my life, right, it's
Can I ask you the same thing?
yeah, and for that was kind of one of those things is I knew that I wanted to help, right, and I didn't want to do that in a law enforcement or first responder. That just kind of wasn't my thing. I just knew I always wanted to serve. Now I found that, later on if we go into, how I got here. Uh, you know, to to have an emergency, I mean, mostly my job is based on emergencies. It's not it's maybe I'd say 20% of mine is like, all right, we're scheduling out for something, but it's like, hey, I can't flush my toilets, or my sink is backed up, or my water heater is leaking, or there's a flood, and I got to come on, and to be able to do something that others weren't able to do, it's very rewarding to be able to solve a problem and get those customers, like get customer hot water, they haven't had hot water, or clear something, oh, I can take a shower now. It's that's one of my favorite things to do, and it's usually the hardest thing to do,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's something that people take for granted, and you don't see the work that goes into it. You just see the end result, like the whole all of the plumbing in your house. You don't see how any of it works. Most people don't know, like you said, a thing about it, how it's installed, how it runs. All they see is the water comes out, the water gets hot.
yeah,
Yeah,
I just want it to
first
work.
flush. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
until it doesn't, and then that's when
Yeah.
it's a problem, and it's usually around the this time of the year or any holiday where I tell people, hey, look, if you can be proactive, please be proactive. Just get me out there. I'll take a look at everything and I'll let you know, hey, this is what I see. Or, septic systems, right? It's you have, 20 people over for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, but I would say, yeah, my absolute favorite thing is to provide a service and to solve a problem. And that's huge for me.
So you said you didn't know how you get started, but I guess we could go, or you didn't know how you decided you wanted to be a plumber. Um,
Yeah.
what kind of led you to this decision then? What kind of how did you get to that point? Because there's a lot, I'm imagining when you were growing up as well, there was a lot of push to college and a lot of push to go get a degree. And, especially like plumbers are the ones that get picked on a lot about, you don't want to be a dang dirty plumber,
Yeah.
cleaning out people's toilets forever when you could go, work smarter, not harder, all that type of stuff. That it's plumbers are the ones, some of the ones that get um, picked on as being dirty and all of that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so big always seeing plumbers that are passionate about it and that are especially younger
Yeah.
is always surprising.
Well, for me growing up, it was baseball, right? That's what I thought I was going to do. And I was bred to play baseball, and that was it, right? And, it's funny. It's like when I played, all through high school, all through college. And then when the majors didn't call, you have to figure out, all right, well, what do I know how to do? Well, I know how to hit a baseball, but not good enough to go anywhere with it. And that's when it just kind of translated into, all right, well, now I got to get a real job and figure it out. And it started with getting a job at a irrigation landscape company, right? Just selling it, kind of like, I don't know what kind of um, like companies are around, but like Ferguson and stuff like that, like places like
Yeah, yeah, there's quite a
distributors.
yeah, supply
Yeah.
companies, yeah.
So it started out in that world, right? And then I learned the irrigation side of things. And then I started working in irrigation landscape with, a guy I knew that I met from there. And then that went to surprisingly farming and farm construction. I loved it. And then so when you're doing farm construction, you're doing everything, right? And then it was random, I was like, all right, as a homeowner, plumbing is valuable. And I knew that was something that I was interested in. And then I got on with, some plumbing companies, and I kind of bounced around. And then I realized that this is something that I really enjoy doing. And it started with drains, and I know drains really well. Right. And then it was that blessing of having a really bad boss. And that was that kick in the butt to go do my own thing, and that was really when I knew that I like working with my hands. I like doing this blue collar stuff. I'm really enjoying it. And then I found that I was pretty good at it. And so that whole thing just kind of led me to where I am now. And it's just such a blessing. And then I
Yeah.
keep educating myself to get better.
Yeah. Well, something you said there, you decided you liked working with your hands and you liked the blue collar thing, the blue collar lifestyle. That's not something that anybody wants you to hear, right? Like people that want you to go to college and they're pushing this college idea. And like you just said you went to college, I went to college as well. Like the amount of people I saw jumping around degrees, um, spending years and years in college and not even knowing what they wanted to do, wasting all the money was like a kick in the butt to me to be like, wow, this sure seems like the way that people get sucked into this system, not get out of the system. And like, with all of the push, like I said, with the work smarter, not harder, all of these things that push people to go to school, they forget the idea that humans are very well designed to move and work with their hands and build things and fix things. It's like everybody knows that they have a good feeling when they fix things, right? And that is something that you get every single day when you're doing one of these jobs, and you're not supposed to like it. Like it's supposed to be like this um, lesser than occupation, and it's crazy. I mean, the narrative around surrounding it is insane. Um,
Yeah, you know it that is right. That's the view on trades, right? Is you're supposed to do clean work, right? And go work on Wall Street and be white collar, right? And I mean, I'll be the first one to say I went to college to play baseball. That's what I did, and that's why I went. I didn't get my degree. I didn't. I mean, I could have went back and finished, but I didn't have any desire to do so because you know I'm 38 years old, and for me and in my time at that point going through college, that was like, oh yeah, so what, you got your degree, right? And it didn't mean anything, right? My wife has a degree in business and she's a teacher, right? So it's like, when you're going through all this stuff, it you don't know. I mean, unfortunately, at that age, most of the time, people don't know what they want to do, and sometimes, yeah, there's those that I'm going to college for this, and this is what I'm doing, and they do it, right? But the view on trades, like you said, it is, oh, you're just dumb. That's why you're getting into trades. So you can't do anything else. You might as well work with your hands. And you're absolutely right. Like, whether it's guys like you doing concrete masonry, or guys like me doing plumbing, you're just you're dirty, you just you
yeah,
uh
low IQ.
yeah, exactly. Yet guys like us take that, and it's not something, right, that's what sets us apart. And I know I take mine, it's an art, right? It's something that I take pride in to make sure, because things that the trades do is the building blocks of this country, right? And the trades are slowly dying because people don't want to do that. They don't want to work, they don't want to work hard. And like you said, there is a level of satisfaction with a hard day's work. And it's what we're supposed to, it's what we're built to do, not just men but women, right? it's
Yeah.
it's we're all built to do that.
Yeah. Something people gloss over is this idea that these occupations, these, white collar supposed occupations, um, haven't really been around that long. I mean, look at how recent just universities are in general, but how recent computers are and working on computers, from computers, social media, the internet. Like there's a whole new world of these jobs coming out, and people don't want to do the manual labor jobs because somehow they're lesser than, and um, they have this idea that you don't make as much money. And I think in some cases you probably can make more working with technology,
Yeah,
but you can make just as much money, as long as you apply yourself. And I think that's the problem is people are getting this idea that they can't make money doing blue collar stuff. They're not supposed to like it, so they don't. So they don't apply themselves. They hate it. They sit there and struggle away in this job and don't make any money. And oh yeah, it's because you don't make money. in the trades.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then, but it's the same, right? It's that same caveat of it's just like going to the gym, right? I want the easy route. I just I want to take something and speed up the process, but I don't want to go and hit the iron and actually put the time and effort and absolutely beat myself down to get a result. I mean, it's right. Diamonds take pressure, right? It's something that takes time to develop your craft, but you have to be able to put in the work, right? And just like you said, it's funny. I can think back, and it's 10 years ago now, but it seems like yesterday. But that when Instagram was, it was like 2014, 2015, when it was really getting big. It's not that long ago, and you can make good money and still be a good person, right? And that's the thing with the trades. If you're doing it, yeah, I'm not always making money. I'm always working, but there's a sense of pride in what you do, and it's not supposed to be easy. Some days are easier than others, and some days you're like, oh wow, I made some good money on that job, and then
Mhm.
others you absolutely destroy yourself, and you're like, I barely made cost. But it's constant, that up and down, but you have to be willing. Blue collar is a lot like life. It's up, it's down, it's hard, it's rewarding, and you just have to be willing to go through it. And it's something that is special, right? Because if you're constantly looking at taking the easy route, well, you're never going to stick with anything, right? It's just like a diet, right? Oh, cool, it's too hard, I don't want to do it anymore. Or that, how many laborers I'm sure that you've had out with you, or myself, they're like, I don't want to do that again. Well, if you can't work a shovel, you'll never learn to do the real work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're in a weird time where like people lump all these careers into 9 to 5 jobs, and like these white collar like college degree jobs are in these 9 to 5 jobs, and somehow like you don't get anywhere in those still. Okay, even if you're in those, you still work a lot, long hours to set yourself apart. It's no different than working in trades. But now we have a whole host of people talking about how you can make money online and to leave your 9 to 5. So now they're like, no, we don't want to do trades. We don't want to do this. Just start like selling shit or doing whatever it is. And it seems really like dirty to me, weird and dirty. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, right? And you look at where everything has gone, and especially where it's going to go. And look, AI and robots, they're never gonna do what I do. And they're never gonna do what you do, right? There may be special cases where, that it does happen, but you're never ever going to replace the trades. And I'm sorry. And if somehow it happens, it's going to be the last thing that gets replaced
Well, if
by.
you think about what's got to happen, I mean, there are so many scenarios in trade work that are uncontrolled situations. And for these things to be able to work, they kind of have to have set constraints, um, operating rules. It's really hard to get something like that to make on-site adjustments and teach the skill that you would need. So you'd almost have to completely change the way it's done in order for it to take over. And I don't really see that happening because it's been done this way for a really, really long time. And I mean, that you would still have this capacity. Like it would never take your job away servicing houses, servicing doing emergency visits and servicing people in existing plumbing scenarios. But if they somehow changed the way it was done, I don't even know. But that's how it would have to happen. Because the way it is right now, it's too much unknown variables for something like that to figure out.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the entire development on the way things are done, like you said, would have to completely change, right?
Yep.
Like houses would have to be built completely foolproof to where this is like you're never ever going to have an issue, and none of these things are perishable items to where this water heater lasts forever or this pipe lasts forever, and they're completely robotic, and this is the future, and you don't need a plumber ever again. And look, that may happen, but it's going to take a whole
A
lot of
long
time,
time.
and definitely not in my lifetime. That's for
Nope.
sure.
Yep.
And it's just, it is. Look, it's one of those things that is a very the trades in general is something that, as a father, that's something that I'm never gonna say, oh, I don't want my daughters to be in the trades. No, heck no, I want my daughters to be in the trades for sure. Obviously, hey, play sports and do what you want, but that teaching of that mechanical skill has to be there, right? It's just the building blocks of your life: how to change a tire, how to tie a knot, right? Like how to work with your hands is one of the most valuable things that you can have.
Well, it's about becoming valuable. You know what I mean? It's about having skills that you can do that nobody can take away from you. If the thing that's crazy about um, a lot of computer jobs is like some of them are very um, reputation based or provable, I guess, based on your work. But a lot of them, if you go to one company and they look at your school that you went to and they don't like where you went and somebody else went to a different school, they'd be like, I'm gonna take this person. Like no amount of merit is there. And I think that's changing now, but up until now, it's been almost entirely like based on where you went to school, like why, and they value it so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's all based on, right, your resume, right? They
Yeah.
look at you. You are a piece of paper, right?
Hmm.
And it and I come into that a lot when I go to people's houses, and they, from COVID, that's what started most of the working from home. And I never understood that, nor do I, of what that world is, right? Just to be sitting on your computer all day, and that's what you do. It's interesting to see, but to me, it's a no-brainer. That is something that is easily replaceable, and that would scare me to work in that world, because that is a constant bouncing around to the next, and it's something that is, it's, to me, not a, I know I might get some hate for this, but it's not a real valuable type thing that, what can I do when stuff shuts down? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, what skills do I have? What can I
Yeah.
do? Can I
Yeah.
survive? No.
Hmm. No, no, rely on other people to do it for you. I mean, it's crazy because these are still needed, but people just act like it's somebody else's problem. And I don't think I mean, this whole conversation isn't necessarily saying that you have to go into trade work. Like the whole problem with this with society right now is saying you have to do this or you have to do that in order to be successful, right? You can do whatever it is, and you don't have to feel bad because you decided you wanted to go work with your hands instead of, you know, work, you know, I guess with your mind, as they say, even though that terminology itself makes it sound like blue collar guys are dumb, which is not true,
Well,
because there's
well, yeah, try reading a set of blueprints, right, and figure out if
right,
you have a
right,
brain or not. It's
yeah, no kidding. And
and
so
yeah.
it's it's one of those things that like we have to start just, and this probably leads me to my next question, but social media is super important for showing people what you can accomplish. And so my next thing is, why did you start your social media? Like, what's your kind of business goal slash your personal goal from it?
So social media was actually funny on how it started. Is I was not much of a social media type guy, right? You know, the first social media that I ever had was MySpace, right? Back in high school, right? That's when that first came out. And then Facebook came about, which, if you remember, Facebook was only for college kids. That was it. You had to have a college email to have a Facebook. And then it opened up. I know it's funny, right? And then it opened up to the public, and And so then and like I said, when Instagram first came about, and I remember it was like 2014, 2015, when a coworker of mine, he's like, dude, you got to get an Instagram. And I'm like, why? I have a Facebook. And he's like, oh, because it's so cool. You can like tap on it. And back then it was only pictures. You could only put a picture. There was no description, no nothing, just a picture. And so when I started my Instagram, that was, it was a personal one and it was that. But when I started and created the Plum Doc, right, it was mostly to show my wife what I do for a living, right? Because right, it's nobody knows what you do, and I have friends, family, people I've known forever that think that plumbers just plunge toilets, like that's it, and have no idea of what's involved. So it was two things: to show my wife what I do for a living, and to put my content, put my pictures, put videos in places, right? And and then it was really to I didn't have any aspirations of getting business from it, and nor do I. But it was kind of on the personal side of starting it, and then to connect with manufacturers and contractors, right? Like guys like you and Rigid and Odie and these companies that I use all the time, that I wanted to start getting a relationship with. And those two things were important to me of why I started. But then I wanted to make sure that I used it properly, that I wasn't going to be, because for me it was out of the norm, right? Is oh, I got to get a tripod set up, and because for me, most of my stuff was never captured, because it was like, I get in, I want to do my job, and I get out. I don't waste any time, especially right. I'm not. I'm on my own clock. I'm owner operator. I got to get it done and get to the next one. I don't have time to waste. And social media, it's a waste of time, and I don't want to do it, right? But it really takes 5 seconds to set it up, and then you get better at it, and it's really neat, to be able to connect, and it's like, and then when guys that I used to, guys and gals that I used to follow are now following me, and we're chatting and doing stuff like this that I never thought, that I'd be doing, and so starting it was more on a kind of a personal side that I never imagined would take it to the business side. But it's in social media is a funny thing. It's
Yeah. It's like everybody has a different idea about how to use it, which is really what makes it unique. And I think right now we have such a cool opportunity to put, shed a light on the trades and show people what you do. Like you said, like show the process and show like what it is you actually work on during the day instead of plunging toilets. Because I mean, maybe that's why people don't think plumbing is very desirable career, because they think you're just out there plunging 100 toilets a day or something, you know?
Oh, yeah, and it shows the real side, right? To be
Yeah.
able to do the different facets. Oh, I didn't know you worked on gas. Oh, you do water heaters. Oh, you do repipes. Oh, all this different stuff. They're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Oh, what's that tool that you use, right? All this different stuff that again, that you don't know. Now, again, 10% of the time I'm ankle deep in some stuff you don't want to be in, and then like the last video that I posted where that drain was just absolutely
Yeah.
disgusting. Those are ones that people don't want to really be a part of, but that's part of the job. But it's those are things that I'm willing to do, right? It's just, it doesn't gross me out, every now and then, but it is, right? But you have 90 seconds, right, at the max to put something out there. And then especially with Instagram, I try to treat it like I'm trying to entertain a child, because in reality, when we go on social media, we're children. We have three
Yeah.
seconds for you to get my no, no, moving on,
Yeah.
and so when you look at social media, Instagram, Facebook, they're all different, right? Instagram is more of, I'm just entertaining pretty much, right? And every now and then there's some education involved, and those are things that I want to make sure that I'm entertaining, educational, and real, right? And those are what I want to make sure of. And that's why it was weird at first to have my daughters on with me, because especially social media, internet, it's such a it's a hard thing, because it's kind of scary, right? Because the
Yeah.
internet's scary, right? And there's a lot
Yeah,
of,
we decided with our baby to not share pictures of his face, and
yeah.
just because it's one of those things, like I don't really know if I want a bunch of people knowing what he looks like. And it's one of those things you have to draw the line between, where is it that you are comfortable with?
Yeah, and it's a constant juggle, right? Because it is, right? And the way I kind of figured it is, if they want to know anything about me or look me up, they're gonna find it, and they're gonna find it from either my wife's page or my personal page, and they will find it, And so, but I keep it limited, I limit the exposure, but I also want them to be a part of it, right? Because this is something that I've built not just for my business, but this is something that when I look back, they're gonna, they're it's all gonna be there. Oh yeah, they were part of that process, the entire time. And my wife, however, on the other side, she doesn't want to be in it. So, but that's her choice. I'll get her in it as much as I can, but it's all of social media has its places, and I'm gonna start doing more on YouTube too when I start really doing more of a how to, right? There's more time to do that on there.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that's just one more thing to juggle. I don't remember if we were talking off camera or not about this, but like there's always so much to do, and it's just one more thing, we try to make it as easy as possible and make one video and post to different platforms. But if you're trying to tailor social media posts to different platforms, and then you're also trying to take on YouTube is almost something that you need to just focus on and not even worry about other stuff, because it's so important to create good long form content. And that takes a long time too.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people don't understand, right? It's kind of the, I'm sure you get the same type of comments on your page of, oh, I would have done it this way, or you should have done it that way, or
Yeah.
you're garbage, or whatever it is, right? You have a certain amount of time to show, and nobody realizes how much time it takes to go through those videos and edit, so it's not boring, right? It's being entertaining, but also educational. And when you have, you know 30 minutes worth of content that you have to shrink down into 90 seconds, it's it's bullet points, right? And you have to sit there. When I go through a job and I have content all on my phone, I have to go through and spend, right, and you have to allocate that time,
Yeah.
because we're also family men too,
Hmm.
right? So it's like you have your job that you have to do, then you have to grow your business, then you want to be present on social media, and then you have to, and then family time, right? So it's like all that combined, that that amount of editing and to be able to put out a video is not as easy, like your podcast, right? Like there are some that may be quick, and then there are some where you got to sit and edit, but what they
Hmm.
see has nothing to do with the amount of time that you had to
Hmm.
spend to put that out there.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, and over time it gets easier, like you said, and the editing becomes less, and then maybe you have to edit more, but you're quicker at it. So like it's just becomes easier over time. But that's how life is. Every time you take on a new skill, you become
Oh yeah.
better at it and faster, and it makes it easier, and it can turn into something useful down the road.
Yeah, I think it is, right. I think it's all, everything that we do, right? If you're going to have a presence on social media, it's, you better make sure it's important, that because
Yep.
that's what sets it aside. Because at the beginning, you have a job to do, right? You're a tradesman, and doing these videos, right? It's like, I'm not an influencer, right? When you look at the core, I may be tagged as one, but my main job is plumbing, right? And so I have to make sure that I'm using my social media platform for what I want it to be, and it's just to put my content out there, and people, if they like it, great. If they don't, let's
Never.
keep
And they
scrolling.
make it so hard to do it like that because it's so easy to get sucked into random videos. And there's so many times I find myself, I click on one video and then read the comments and 30 minutes has gone by and I'm like, holy crap, I just
Yeah,
wasted
yeah.
30 minutes
Let me go
watching
down that
these,
rabbit hole and just
right?
keep on going.
Watching these, but like you spend all this time watching people argue in comments about, how they know better than what happened to this person in the video when it's just bullet points, like you said too. Like
Oh yeah.
just making conjectures and all of a sudden they're the expert and they get so mad and frustrated with it. And it's like, how can you spend so much time on something like that? But
Well, yeah.
but you can because you just get freaking sucked in.
Yeah, well, people wake up wanting to hate something, right? And so it's when I go through and look, it's kind of one of those things that I always say is like, if you're getting booed at Yankee Stadium, you're doing something right, and it's if they're gonna hate my videos or love my videos, it's I'm doing something, Obviously, I'm doing something enough that they think they know better, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you
yeah.
you have to draw the line there, like to putting it out there to be purposefully provocative, but also not making it look like you're a total dummy and being able to make sure that you can handle the people telling you that too, because it takes a toll on your mind, no matter who you are. Like people will say it doesn't bother them, but it totally does seeing negative comments on videos. It totally
Oh,
does.
and it's funny, right? Like I remember the first real hateful comment I got. I was like, "What the what? Man? I
What the
thought
heck?
I did a good job on that." And then over time, right, you get a little callous to where most of the time on all my hateful comments, I will either I never fight hate with hate. I just don't. It doesn't do any good because people that are going to hate it, they wake up to hate, and you'll never change their mind. So my main reply is if you hate that one, drop me a follow for more disappointment because you're gonna hate the rest.
Well, that's yeah, you have to do that to diffuse the situation. Otherwise, it will literally become this endless rabbit hole of back and forth comments and you think in your mind you're convincing them that they're being ridiculous and maybe even not that you're right but just that they're being ridiculous, like how can you possibly be doing this right now?
Yeah,
And
I've had a lot of people that have become some of my bigger followers and they started off of hating like hate comments and I'll say that right and they'll laugh and then now they comment and they love my videos, right? And so
yeah,
it just it's it's handling so right if you're putting, and that's the one thing that I told myself is that I have to be ready for good and bad if I'm going to put my content out there, right? Because as soon as you start putting it out there, you're exposing yourself to everything, right? Everybody in every country that is looking at that and is like, oh, okay, yeah, I like it, or all right, I'm going to hate it, right? And so you have to be willing to go through that, and it's no different than what we do, right? You have to be willing to deal with because we don't always have the best customers, or it's you gotta be willing to take criticism. But
yeah.
yeah, it definitely stings sometimes.
Oh, when you were first starting, how were you getting yourself to continue with your social media while you're, busy working? And obviously your kids were probably really little at that point and busy. And um, with all of that, with the disappointment from the hateful comments,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously at this point right now, your social media probably doesn't really take a ton from you as
yeah.
far as mental bandwidth or time as much as it used to, but that initial little while is like it's hard.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that when I started, right, you don't, and that's where a lot of the people along the way helped, right? Is me, talking with different contractors, and they're big on social media, and they're like, yeah, this is how I do it, or this is how you should do it, and it started as I would post one a week, one video a week, and that was hard enough, right? And then I would try to do at least two a week. And then, I just always wanted to make sure that I had decent content to put on there. I just didn't want to put anything on there to be like, hey guys, what's going on? And post it, right? Just for no reason. I wanted it to be something of value. And over time, then you start getting on a roll and you're like, all right, then now I'm posting every day. And then, right, we can get into the whole algorithm of when you
Yeah.
should and all that stuff. But for me, as a uh, my kids, when I started it, they were probably 8 and 6, right? So now, I only started a few years ago. And so with that, it was right, you trying to balance everything. And then I treated it as, all right, it's my everyday life, right? So I'm not going to miss a moment, because there's plenty of times to get content that you just miss because it's not part of your mindset, right? And she's like, oh, all right, yeah, it's weird, right? You're like, okay, let me just get my phone and I gotta take a video of this to get content. And it seems dumb. That was the biggest thing that I had to get over is, this is just dumb. This is not my forte. And once I got over that, and then my girls love it, they're a big fan of it. And so it just kind of became something that, right, is that I try to portray. It's me, right? I'm not trying to portray anything different than what my life is. And I think that that is something that obviously people want to see. I don't show too much of my personal life, in there. That's for my personal page. But as a business page, or more of like a professional page, I just try to keep it as plumbing and random stuff. But you get the hang of it.
Yeah. What would be your advice to people nowadays wanting to get into what you do and then maybe even getting started on social media as well?
Um, it's kind of one thing is that you have to be willing to start, right? It's just with anything. If you want to get into plumbing, it's it's not an easy profession, but I don't know any trade that's easy, and it's whether
They're
it's
also not easy that everybody complains or everybody not complains, fights about which one's hardest.
well,
That's the
exactly.
funny part.
Exactly, right? And so getting into plumbing, right? Um, it's I guess any trade you can say, hey, it's to provide a service, right? You got to be passionate about what you do, but if you want to be a plumber, you have to be used to tight spaces, and you have to be used to dealing with, some dirty stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not all the time, but if you can't handle sewage, then it's probably not the industry for you,
I mean, that that'd be take it a step further and be one of the shitter truck cleaners, which I have never understood how they do that stuff.
No, no.
No.
I remember I have some electrician buddies of mine, but they would always tell me, and I remember I was doing a commercial job and I was replacing these trash pumps. They were in this pit, and it was, they just freshly pumped it, but it was supplying this whole commercial building these bathrooms, right? And it was a real nasty job, right? And I come climbing out of this pit, and my electrician buddy who's wiring up the panel for the pumps, he goes, "Man, you should become an electrician so you're clean all the time." And I'm like, oh, that's just never been my style, And everybody has their thing, right? If you want to be in the trades but be clean all the time, then be an
Well,
electrician.
they're so clean. They're so clean that they leave their mess behind them, you know?
Yeah, and they never know what a broom is. Yeah, it's and but it's, yeah, it's right. Like same with you. There's drywallers or masonry, right? plumbing, you are absolutely filthy. And usually it's one of the more dirtier jobs that you can have. I love it, right? There are certain times when I come home that I gotta strip down outside and those clothes gotta get hosed off before they go in the wash. But it's not for everybody, but plumbing is one of those things that, look, if you want to get into it and you own a home, it's one of the more valuable trades that you can have as a homeowner, right? That you know most of the stuff you can do, whether it's minor electrical and anything, and you can get away with a whole lot of stuff. But plumbing, every now and then when I step back and think about what I do, I'm dealing with water, sewer, gas, things that can absolutely, if I do it wrong, man, their house is toast,
Yeah.
and I got a
Yeah.
hefty bill to pay for.
Mhm.
So you got to take it seriously. You got to do it right. You got to use that. But when it on that whole end of whether you're comfortable with being in tight spaces and being absolutely filthy all day, starting your social media, the only advice that I can have of that is just be you, right? Be who your customer sees, because that's the other facet, is that if you're a business owner, right, or you're in the trades and you're going to people's houses and you're trying to make sure that they want to hire you, well, you can't be real scummy on social media. And it's, you have to make sure who you are on social media is who you are when you walk to their door. And so just to put quality content on there and just be you.
Yeah. That is some good advice. Let's let's go one last thing and say what's one of the best and worst experiences you've had on a job. I think you might have alluded to one of them with the climbing in the sewer tank for the commercial job, but
Some of the worst ones is being in crawl spaces, um you know um being in attics during the summertime. That commercial job was pretty bad, especially when they don't tell the employees to stop using the bathroom when you're in the pit. Yeah, that one was pretty nasty. But some of the best ones, right, is I do a lot of leak detections all the time. And to be able to, I had one, it was actually just recently, more of the better ones, right? It was a insurance claim, and it was actually some family friends of mine. They didn't know what I did for a living, right? It's a whole from back earlier. They haven't had hot water for 2 weeks and waiting on everything to go through. And I came in and I did the reroute and got them hot water. They're able to take a shower. They've been basically camping at their house. They have like these water jugs that they took outside they would heat up. And I was just like, oh my goodness, and to be able to come in and do something that others couldn't, and you provide a service and you get something back for them. There's a whole lot of jobs that I can go through of what my favorite moments are. But the biggest thing is when somebody is when I'm able to offer my knowledge and to be able to help, not only to get them where they need to go in the process, but to be that comfort for them, but then to provide a service and to get them hot water again. That's everything, right? When you don't have hot water,
no, it's pretty crappy.
yeah, yeah. So it's
Well,
it's all rewarding, and that's why I love
yeah,
what I do.
yeah, I like that. Well, do you have anything to leave off with? Where can people go to find you as well?
Um, I think for me, it's just continue to work, right? Can continue to do what you're passionate about, and don't get comfortable, right? Don't ever be comfortable. And that's the biggest thing of why I'm where I'm at. For me, it's my Lord and Savior, right? That's for me in my life, and that's why I am where I'm at, to provide a service for those. but to keep working, even if you don't know what you want to do, just keep working and you're going to find your spot, and don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, right? Because every facet of your life is uncomfortable, and as soon as you're comfortable, you're gonna stop progressing, and um you know social media, Plumb Doc, that's where you'll find me, or you'll see me. I just got my truck wrapped, so if you're in the Temecula area, you'll see me cruising around with my big face on my door. So, but yeah, just keep on working, man.
We didn't even get into the fact that you're a troll ambassador too, I don't think.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, anyways, use code PlumDoc10, right?
Plum Doc 10. That's it. But now,
Yep.
what was it, Holiday 20?
Yeah, yeah. Get on there. 20% off. Actually, you know what? By the time this comes out, that's going to be done. But
Yeah, we'll be
whatever. That's too bad.
done.
It's too bad. Well,
Uh,
Brian, it was awesome having you.
all right, my
So,
man. Well, hey,
yes.
I'll talk to you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Yep, you too.
All right, buddy.
Okay. Okay.